Nick Kirby wasn't even born in 1990.
I think he was around.
He wasn't around. Kirby, were you around in 90, or do I stand? You were 3 years old?
Yes, sir. 3 years old. Remember it vividly.
Look at all that. I mean, you got a shrine down there. I mean, that is a big league man cave setup down there you've got set up.
Well, I'm up in the Cleveland area, so I got to try to bring Cincinnati with me. So, yeah, got the little setup. Got a little renovation we're doing. Had a little water damage, so the floor's a little rough, but we're rocking and rolling.
Well, man, I'm sorry to hear that. That is always a nightmare. I tell these guys all the time, Nick. I tell them all the time, and they argue with me, and I've said it for now. This show is about 8 months old. Some of the nicest suburbs of any city in the United States of America are in Cleveland, Ohio. Am I right or wrong? Please, Nick, tell me. Am I right or wrong?
You're right. Honestly, Cincinnati and Cleveland are so similar. Like, people love to make it out to be this big thing, one or the other. But I know you mentioned before Chagrin Falls. That really is a really lovely area. Done some work down there, so yeah.
All right, let's get to the Redlegs, Nick. Through 5 games, I think it's safe to say, you correct me if I'm wrong, through 5 games, Pirates and the Cubs, neither one of whom are very good, but most people don't think the Reds are very good, so you play them. You win 3 out of your first 5, at least for the first 5 games of the year. It's certainly a lot better than what a lot of people might be expecting, even after only 5 games of the season, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I think overall played pretty well. Guys that you're counting on, like Jonathan India, have got off to really good starts to the year. Graham Ashcraft looked about as good as you possibly could. And then, in that Cubs series, you split the Sessa Overton games, which if the Reds can do that throughout the early part of this year, I think things will be going pretty well.
Listen, this is always a hotly debated topic in any town. It doesn't matter if you are with the New York Mets, who are spending a gazillion dollars, and they've had a guy that's been a major league manager for 25 years in Buck Showalter, or whether you're talking about a guy in David Bell here in Cincinnati who has not necessarily been given a ton of talent. There are a couple of those teams where I felt he should have done better with, and that's just my own opinion. Are we, after 5 years, 4 years, able to make any kind of decision or draw any kind of conclusions about what kind of manager David Bell is?
In terms of if he's a good or bad manager, I would say probably it's very inconclusive at this point. I do feel like the team last year probably underachieved, but I feel like the year before, the team that won 83 games, that was a massive overachievement. And I know they had the very disappointing September, but that team, no one was thinking the Reds would have won 83 games in 2021. And so I think it's really going to be, how does David Bell manage all this new talent that the Reds have coming up? And I think that will define how good or how bad of a manager David Bell is.
Do you think that they're going to allow him? I mean, if everything ends up going the way people think it will, and there's no guarantee of that. Nobody thought they probably would win 3 out of their first 5 games. And, do you think that he will be around to watch this come to fruition with all those young players eventually getting to the big leagues, if not necessarily by halfway through this year, then maybe even into next year?
I would say he's got as good of a chance of any manager to see a rebuild all the way through. Was able to survive the September collapse in 2021. Last year, Reds start 3-22. He would have been a very easy scapegoat for all of the negative energy and everything that was going on around the Reds. So at this point, I would think that they're going to give him a chance to see this all the way through, because if you weren't, why would you not have made the move already, would be kind of how I would look at it.
All right, you look at the state of the franchise and the players that are on the field right now, and we know that Votto will be coming back here very, very soon, if not on this current road trip. Maybe when they return home the next time. We'll wait and see. Nick Senzel is still out there. He's on rehab. The bullpen will certainly change. But let's stay with the position players. As you look at the guys that are playing regularly now, Who will we see of the young players, if there's any particular order? And I know circumstances can sometimes dictate that. If you get a shortstop that's hurt, you got to bring up a shortstop. But as you move forward, by the time this franchise hits July of this summer or August of this summer, what guys are in the minor leagues right now do you think are playing regularly for the big league club?
I would say Matt McClain is the first guy you're going to see. He's number one healthy right now. Ellie De La Cruz and Christian Encarnacion Strand are not. And Matt McClain is off to just a tremendous start. Louisville hit a home run last night. I think Matt McClain is really just an injury away from the big leagues probably at this point. Right now, the Reds don't have a spot necessarily to play for him. I should know is weird with the expectations of this team, but you have Spencer Steer at third base, which you want to get a good run and see what he looks like. You have Jose Barrero at shortstop, and you have Jonathan India at second base. I think the Reds want to see what they have out of each of those three guys. India may be more just how well he can improve defensively than anything else. But yeah, I mean, I think Matt McClain is close. I think that as long as Ellie De La Cruz and Christian Encarnacion Strand are able to get healthy relatively quickly, I think we will see probably both of those guys at the big leagues here at some point this year. I think the Reds want to see, what they have out of those guys, and I think they should be somewhat aggressive with them. Ellie De La Cruz is the one guy that you can't get wrong when you call him up. I think there's a lot of good reasons to call him Burley or also to kind of hold him down. But he's the one guy that you really, really have to get right. And I tell you what, when that guy comes up, he's going to have probably more fanfare than even like Jay Bruce had when he came up back in 2008. And he's the kind of player that really just from so many different aspects can completely change the entire look of the Cincinnati Reds. And I know, Thom, I talked with your pal, Chris Welsh, on the podcast, and he gave the highest praise of Ellie De La Cruz. And Chris isn't one of those guys that just throws that kind of stuff out there for prospects. Said he thought he was the best prospect since Eric Davis for the Reds.
Well, it's interesting he brings up Eric Davis because in many ways, as you just pointed out, Nick, Eric Davis did change the way we looked at the Reds team. They had some other talented players, make no mistake about it. When they brought him to the big leagues, they still had some veteran guys that were hanging on, and Dave Parker and Buddy Bell and some of those guys. But then they had this whole fleet of young players, much like they have now. The Larkins and the Stillwells and the O'Neills and the Sabos and all these guys right on down the line. I can't forget Tracy Jones. He was part of that whole group too. But Davis was a guy that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know about Encarnacion Strand getting up to the big leagues and being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You could see De La Cruz being that guy because of the way he can impact a game. I love the way you put it because I've often wondered, and I'm curious what you hear about De La Cruz from a maturity standpoint. It used to make me crazy when I would hear general managers say in private conversations or even publicly to the media, in that matter, you don't want to bring him up and have the guy fail. Then all of a sudden mentally you might lose him. This is where, in my opinion, you have to know the kid. You better know him better than the other teams know your kids, right? Is he the kind of guy? He grew up poor. He grew up having to earn everything. Okay, if he fails, he's an ultimate grinder. He's going to continue going, and it's not going to beat him down mentally. What do you hear about his makeup? And maybe we just don't know a lot yet because he's so young.
Well, I know from multiple people that covered the Reds in spring training, they said he looked like the best player out there.
Yeah.
So, I guess from that standpoint, he definitely fits the part to this point. I've heard nothing but positive things about him. I've never heard anyone say a bad word about him, about his work ethic or anything like that. Ellie De La Cruz, the thing that stands out to me from watching him, now granted, I've only seen him play in person one time and watch some games on MILB TV, but he's just such an incredible athlete. The game looks so easy to him that's where it's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts. Like when he got to Double-A last year, he hit the ground running. It wasn't really that big of a challenge for him. So how will Ellie De La Cruz respond when the game gets tougher for him? That'll be maybe what decides how quickly he can become a a major league contributor, and we hope a major league star, is how will he respond to that? And I think that's probably what the Reds want to see this year. Maybe it sounds like they're going to start him at AAA. But I don't know if he's going to struggle. I really don't. Just what you've seen out of him, the numbers that he's put up, I don't know if he's going to struggle until he gets to the big league. So that's going to be kind of the thing that I think the Reds are going to have to weigh more than anything else.
All right, I want to ask you a couple of other things very quickly about the team and your expectations. I've asked a lot of people this question, including Chris Welsh, but you're a guy who's followed baseball and you know the game inside and out. What are reasonable expectations? Reasonable expectations out of the quote-unquote big three this year?
I think you want all three to prove that they're big league starters, which everything to this point says that. But do one of those three guys, when you get into the dog days of August, really struggle or to be a Debbie Downer? Are there any injuries with either of those three? I think you want those three guys to get through the season healthy. I want you to feel like they are all three legit big league starters. I don't even necessarily think you need any of them to prove that they're stars just yet. But I just think getting to the end of the year, honestly, almost feeling about the same as we felt about them coming into the year, because so many times you see those pitchers have that like classic sophomore slump. And if they can avoid just that, I think that really sets the Reds up well here going into the next couple years.
All right, I asked you about the position players and what 1, 2, 3 guys we might see brought up the quickest. What about pitchers? I was watching some of the video earlier today of Andrew Abbott, right? Strikes out the first 9 guys in a minor league game last night. Left-hander, I mean, he looked like I didn't see the radar gun on it. He looked like, to me, he was letting it fly pretty good last night. Starting rotation, I know that Overton they're going to give the chance. I know that Sessa is capable of doing some good things. But if there were to be 1 or 2 names to look out for that could be the first guys on deck to jump into that starting rotation.
Well, Luke Weaver, I know he's kind of on like a rehab assignment right now. I think the Reds paid $2 million for him. So they're obviously, I would assume, going to give him a decent chance this year to grab one of the rotation spots. He's had some good numbers over the last couple of years, kind of some mixed results at times, dealt with a ton of injuries. So the biggest question for him probably is just, can he actually stay healthy? And then, I mean, you have like some other filler guys like Chase Anderson that's probably ready to go at AAA. Obviously, you'd love to see Brandon Williamson, who's at AAA. He actually starts tonight for the Louisville Bats. You'd love to see him figure it out. This guy was a top 100 prospect, has been a disappointment so far since he was part of the Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez trade. But then, yeah, I mean, you have Andrew Abbott and Connor Phillips at AA that you're hoping either one of those guys can maybe take that leap up to the big leagues here by the end of the year and at least kind of give you some better options going into next season. Chase Petty's a guy that we like as well, but I think he's still quite a ways away. I believe he's going to start the year for Dayton, and he's actually on the IL right now, so I wouldn't expect him this year, but he's a guy that has a ton of upside for the Reds.
Last player I want to ask you about, and I made the comment, look, and it's nothing against the kid because by all accounts he is just an awesome kid. He's a physical specimen. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it that 5 games is the quote-unquote small sample size. But you and I both know the Cleveland Guardians are not in the business of drafting guys in the first round and letting them walk out the door. I mean, they have a very low payroll, so you know where I'm going here with Benson. How much rope are they going to give Benson?
I would say he's probably running out of it. I would say when Joey Votto comes back, which who knows if Joey Votto will be back this weekend or whatnot. The Reds have been kind of hush about that. Yeah. I think they just want Votto to tell them when he's ready, pretty much. I would say Benson's probably the odd man out, and then Vossler will actually kind of switch to the role that he was supposed to be on the opening day roster. The reason Vossler made the opening day roster is because he can play third base, second base, left field, right field. He wasn't just like the first baseman. It was his position flexibility that I think attracted him to make the roster more than anything. So I would imagine he kind of just gets moved around, and they keep him in the lineup as long as he can, continue to hit and produce. Benson, he's a guy that has a high strikeout rate, so I don't want to make too much out of a really small sample with him. Obviously, he's looked really, really rough at the plate, but strikeouts are just part of his game. You saw the talent offensively in spring training, and we've even seen the talent defensively and his base running ability here in the big leagues through the first 5 games. I think he's probably a guy that just is going to have to go down to AAA, work on things, take a deep breath. But you're right, Thom. The Guardians don't miss on a lot of trades. They have won a lot of trades and made a lot of other GMs look foolish over the last couple of years. And the Reds didn't give up a ton for Benson, so it's not like if Benson turns out to be just a 4A type player. It's not like the Reds really gave up a ton. But I do like his upside, and I'm interested to see maybe what adjustments he can make. One more quick point on Benson, and I made this the other day on our Chatterbox Red show. Maybe Will Benson can have the same type of season that TJ Friedl had last year. Remember, TJ Friedl, when he got the chance in April, he was really, really bad at the plate, really struggled. Reds sent him down to AAA. He worked on his swing, made some adjustments, and ever since TJ Friedl has come back, he's been one of the best players the Reds have had. So you kind of hope maybe Benson can go through that same type of mold this season, assuming he doesn't pick it up. I believe he's batting 8th today, so he'll get a chance.
All right, last thing I want to ask you about, Nick, and I don't know how closely. I know you follow everything that's baseball, but I don't know how closely you followed the news that came out even today about this lawsuit now that Major League Baseball has filed along with a couple of teams against a parent company of Bally Sports. We know that they filed for bankruptcy, Diamond Sports, and they have already missed out on payments, their rights fees payments to some of the clubs that they owe money to. And now there are a couple of more where, they owe money. The Reds are in that group in the next sort of wave. If they can't get the money from these guys, what is going to be? I know Major League Baseball likes to say, oh, no, we got it all covered. Okay, but what you don't have covered is the money. You might have covered the telecast of the games, but you don't have the $30 million or the $40 million, or the Indians are due $55 million, if you believe reports, that Bally's can't pay. Well, the Reds are somewhere in between that 40 and 50, we think. What is the impact on this club and this franchise if all of a sudden that money is not there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that probably is one of the major contributors to why the Reds have been maybe even more stingy than in past years with their free agent contracts, is they want to see how the dust settles with all of this. I think in the long run, this is going to be good. It's going to be kind of ugly this year. But I think in the long run, this is going to give Major League Baseball, from everything I've read, and teams the ability to stream their games as its own standalone service. So a lot of teams are doing this, like the Red Sox and Yankees. For about $20 a month, you can just pull up your NESN or your Yes app, watch the games, and that's the only thing you need. And I cannot tell you how many times Reds fans reach out to me and go, I have no way of watching the team. It's not on YouTube TV or whatever. So I think in the long run, that'll be great for baseball. It'll be interesting to see how much revenue they can get from that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter because they weren't going to keep getting the same revenue they were getting from Bally. Though the Reds contract, I would think, went through 2032. So, I mean, yeah, that money would have been nice, but they weren't going to get that same kind of money in 2023 and beyond. This is the way that television and people are consuming baseball is going. So it's adapt or die. And I think it'll be good for Reds fans once we get past I think the sooner the Reds and Major League Baseball can cut ties with Bally. And it kind of sounds, reading between the lines, like Major League Baseball is trying to almost force the hand and get out of those contracts. They just want to be able to have the rights. I think it'll be really great for Reds fans, and I think it'll be good for maybe you get some more eyeballs on the Reds of people that wouldn't be watching otherwise.
Right. I think you're spot on. I think that's true with baseball as a whole. I think more people in your generation that if they're a Reds fan, Yankees fan, Padres fan, doesn't matter. If they can just push that button on their phone and all of a sudden the game is up and they're hanging out at their, wherever they are and they can watch a game, it's much better than the current situation is now. Well, Nick, where can everybody find you? We know we're lucky to have you and blessed to have you here on Chatterbox Sports. But what about day in and day out? Where can people find out what you got going on?
Well, if you want to dive into the dark webs of Twitter, I'm at Nicholas P. Kirby, tweeting all the time about the Reds, and then Chatterbox Reds. Do live shows after every game and podcasts available the morning after as well. Had Bryce Spalding did a special episode in this morning's feed. We talked about the Reds minor league season. The Dragons and Lookouts got underway last night. I actually was at Dayton's debut because they were playing right down the road up here at Lake County, about 20 minutes away from me. So I got to see that last night.
Well, Nick, thanks so much for your time today, man. We really appreciate it. Happy Easter to you and your family.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, buddy. Nick Kirby, kind enough to join us.
Kirbs.
Big part of Chatterbox Sports, dialed in all the time. He'll have a show today, right, after the game.
Yep. Him and Trace. We'll go live right after the game, right here on our YouTube channel.
It's a better option than extra innings.